So let's talk about some weight loss drugs. So what you should know if you're gonna start them, or if you just want some more information about what they are, and if you have people that you know in your life that are taking them, just a little more information. So the basic ones that you need to know about are Ozempic, Wegovy, and Mounjaro. And then there's a new one coming out, which is retatrutide. So those are the names that you would hear in the media. These all use different drugs, which I'll talk about in a sec. So we'll talk about what all the hype's about, do they actually work, and then what happens when you stop. So Ozempic and Wegovy, they use a drug called the semaglutide. And what it is, it's a GLP-1 analog. So it acts like the same kind of hormone in your body. Mounjaro and Zepbound, they're a drug called tirzepatide. So these are what you would kind of hear in the media as Ozempic or Wegovy. They have slightly different formulations. So Wegovy is a more concentrated version of the semaglutide. And if you go with your doctor and you get it prescribed, it's targeted for weight loss, whereas Ozempic, at least initially, is just for diabetes. So in Canada, to get Ozempic, you typically can only get it if you have diabetes or if you're overweight or obese and you have kind of another health condition. So I'll talk a little bit about retatrutide a little bit later, but it's kind of this next generation drug that's coming out that has been shown to be a lot more potent than all these three. So how they work is they mimic different hormones the body naturally has. So GLP-1 or GIP in the body, they help signal fullness. So when you eat food, at some point you feel full. What these hormones particularly do is they help kind of promote that feeling of fullness faster, which helps you eat as much, right? It also just slows down the rate at which your stomach empties. So your brain will get hunger signals when the stomach gets less food in it. As that food goes from your stomach to your digestion, that's when your brain kind of triggers this hunger sensation. So when there's food stuck in the stomach and it stays there longer, that kind of hunger sensation doesn't get triggered. And then all these kind of things, what it helps do is it helps regulate blood sugar, because food's not going into your digestive system as quick and then turning into blood sugar in the blood. And then you get this kind of extended feeling of fullness. That's what the word satiety is. And all that, with the blood sugar comes this more stable kind of energy level, so you're not getting these highs and lows. So how effective are they? They tend to be about 10 to 20% of your average body weight loss. So if someone goes on it and is, say, 200 pounds, what's typically seen is they're going to lose 10 to 20 pounds, typically as much as maybe 40 pounds. And this is while they're on it. So what typically happens when they stop, they tend to regain, because a lot of what's happening is just some changes at the brain. So if you're not doing other things like exercise and diet, then these things aren't going to stick long term. So the biggest factor is consistency. So I'll highlight a few other weight loss methods and what their typical rates are. So diet and exercise usually is about 5%-ish. So that's obviously a kind of general average amongst a lot of people. Some people, they lose as much as 20, 30, and they keep it off long term. But this is kind of a long term. If someone goes and does a diet and exercise plan, do they maintain that weight loss? And what research has kind of shown is it's not great. It's about 5%. Whereas if you go on these weight loss medications, because it's fixing a central problem, which is the hunger, the semaglutide, so this 1 milligram concentration is Ozempic, and the 2.4 is Wegovy. So those are the two kind of drugs that have that. And what it's shown with Wegovy, it's about kind of 15%, and that's long-term, provided you're on it. And the same thing with Ozempic, it's provided you're on it, it's about kind of that 8 to 10%. And then another kind of example here would be bariatric surgery. There's different ways to do bariatric surgery, but essentially what you're doing is you're changing the size of your stomach so that it in itself is kind of fuller faster, so that triggers that fullness signal. So that's pretty effective, and it's out of all the weight loss methods the most effective, but it's also probably the most drastic. Like once you kind of go and do the surgery, it's permanent, and you have to adjust your lifestyle a lot. I won't kind of get into that, but like things like drinking carbonated beverages is probably a no-no, just based on the way you kind of sit in your stomach. And your absorption of certain foods can be quite poor, so you have to be very concentrated on getting enough protein, getting enough vitamins, all kind of fun stuff. And then not shown in here is the other one, which is a tirzepatide, which is the Zepbound or kind of Mounjaro. So the tirzepatide is actually shown to be a little more effective. It's kind of in around here, that kind of 20-ish%. So, and these are just averages. So every person's slightly different. So who are they for? They're for doctors, they're the ones that prescribe it. So I can't prescribe it as a dietitian. I can suggest it that you talk to your doctor. There are a few online places you can grab these drugs, which is not something I'd recommend. I'd recommend talking to your doctor and your healthcare team, and you make a decision together where if that's an option for you. But typically they'll prescribe it if you're medically obese, so having a BMI of over 30. I won't get into whether I'm a BMI proponent or not, but or it's this if you're overweight, so having a BMI kind of over 27 with a condition, meaning high blood pressure, diabetes, these kind of things. And it's not a quick fix. So if you're trying to lose weight for kind of beach season, not something I recommend. And then just kind of a highlight, it's doctor prescribed and monitored. So if you're going to be taking it, you typically want to work with your healthcare team, whether it's a doctor, dietitian, nurse, that kind of thing. So some common side effects, which is the important part to highlight, is that not everyone that takes this is just going to take it easily and all things are kind of green and go. There's things like nausea, bloating, constipation. You can get fatigue and dizziness, which is not great. And one of the things you might have kind of heard in the media is this kind of muscle loss. So there's the common kind of like Ozempic face or Ozempic butt. And that just has to do with the rate of weight loss. So if someone loses kind of 2 to 3 to 4% per week, what can be that aggressive weight loss tends to result in muscle loss, because really when it comes to fat loss, there are two things that you can use for kind of energy is fat, which is what we want, or muscle. So what can happen is if you lose too much fat, your body starts to tap into muscle as well, especially if you're not doing weight training. So resistance training is something I recommend for all clients if they're taking Ozempic, because at least it serves as a signal or a reason to kind of keep that muscle. But everyone's experience with side effects is different. I've had clients that they've had to stop Ozempic because they just had pretty aggressive side effects, like some things like sulfur burps, vomiting, diarrhea. These are not fun things to have. And other people have been just fine. So you got to kind of experiment with it. And the unfun portion of the experimentation with any kind of drug is that you have to allow it, to experience the medication for kind of 2 to 3 weeks, if not more. And there's a reason for that. Part of it has to do with the concentration is stabilizing your body. So when you're just starting it out, it kind of goes through these peaks and valleys of concentrations, which cause these side effects. Once those peaks and valleys stable out, that's where you tend to have, minimal or no side effects. So what happens when you stop? The hunger returns, unfortunately, because a lot of what's happening is these drugs are helping kind of the whole brain food noise. So you're not getting these signals of being, hungry. So weight can rebound. And what's important is to maintain these strong habits. So that's the lifestyle piece, which we'll go over more in a bit. So the drugs don't teach lifestyle. You have to use a lifestyle in kind of conjunction while taking these drugs. So the clients I've had that have had a lot of success is that they're using these weight loss drugs as kind of a catalyst or a way to start moving things in the right direction while they work on the diet, the lifestyle, the sleep, the stress management, those kind of things. So where lifestyle fits in, nutrition and training as a personal trainer and dietitian, but those are the big pieces to have as the foundation. The medication is kind of the top of the pyramid, should be the assistive tool, or at least the thing to kind of get you going. So it's not a replacement. You can't really outlast the drug. And a part of nutrition and training is also things like, are you sleeping enough? Are you managing your stress well enough? So those are that kind of lifestyle piece that if you work on all those, you're not going to champion them or master them, but just trying to work on them in different times of your life and try to slowly build the habits to make them a lot easier. It's just going to make this whole process a lot easier. So a quick little word about retatrutide. It's what's called a triple action drug. So it works like the Ozempic semaglutide. It also works like the tirzepatide, and it does another thing with a glucagon receptor. So these three things is quite potent, and what the early results have shown is about 25% loss, and that's while you're on it. So long-term data is still unknown. We're still learning. So, but I do see this as probably another drug that's going to be coming out. And there might even be more drugs over the course of the next 5-10 years, because this is a pretty hot topic right now. So the key takeaways is they work, at least while you're on them. And there are some side effects, unfortunately, and muscle loss is one of them. So you really want to focus on trying to do some form of a resistance training, whether that's, you could do body weight squats, you could do push-ups, something that stimulates the muscle in the process while you're using them. Strength and nutrition still matter, of course, and then that long-term success piece is that lifestyle piece. So this is a pyramid that I've shown clients is that your medication is kind of at the top. You want the support and structure, meaning like the habits that you do on a regular basis. Do you have, say, friends that work out or exercise? Do they have some positive food habits? That doesn't mean you can't eat, have some treats and fun food here and there, but having that support and structure helps a lot. It can even mean working with like a dietitian or a personal trainer. And the lifestyle piece is at the bottom. So that kind of builds the whole weight loss and weight management approach to this whole, using a medication.